I picked the topic how to be confident in front of the camera. Can you tell me a little bit more about the work that you do?
I think of myself as a documentary filmmaker and producer. And so I run a production company called Evenings and Weekends Productions, or ENW Productions. And we and I make short films, feature films, web content, anything kind of telling stories that I think are relevant to the world we live in today and how I see the world and what I think are important stories that need to be told.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, a big pack right there. When you make the films, do you direct people on to where their tonality, expression, all that stuff, or because it's documentary, it's all very natural?
Yeah, I think I try not to direct the people I'm filming, but it's certainly important that they feel comfortable on camera, that they can feel like they can act naturally on camera, that in a way the camera just isn't really there and that they're just telling their story. And that's nice to say, but of course, anytime you bring a camera in the room, it always changes the environments. So I think more true to form is that I am more, careful about how I set up environments, and then I allow people to be themselves within those environments because you're never going to totally erase the camera that's in front of somebody's face. They're never going to be completely not aware of that. So, in a sense, I build a rapport with my subjects. I create environments that are suitable for, capturing it in something that looks good and that camera is intruding on that person as little as possible. So I think in that sense, I don't direct people, but I'm certainly building relationships with people and capturing environments in a way that I am changing the environment, but doing it in a way that's tries to be truthful to the story that person wants to tell.
Very good. And how do you suggest, or what other tactics that you also do to make people feel really comfortable in front of the camera?
I think the most important thing is I don't show up with a camera, when I meet the person. I build a relationship. And sometimes that can be, it can be many meetings beforehand without a camera, meeting them as a person, having conversations, getting to know them. And then when the opportunity is right, the moment is right, then we film. Then I film. Or, often I hire a crew and stuff like that. So I say I film, but it's not necessarily me holding the camera. As the director, too, you always want to be present. So I find if I'm holding a camera, I'm not present in the moment, and therefore my subject isn't going to be present in the moment. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Do you give them some suggestions before you start filming? Like, relax, sit on a chair, and wear your favorite clothes, or your comfortable, your snuggie, whatever.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. But again, I don't want to direct them. But often you can't help it. That yeah, if we're doing an interview, yeah, you're going to be sitting in a chair in this spot, and I'm going to pick that spot because that has a nice background that looks good in an interview. That's the one thing. But there's also moments where you want to capture people just doing things in their environments. And in that case, you want to direct as little as possible and just allow them to be present. So it kind of goes both ways. It can go depending on what the scene requires.
You're probably thinking like it's easier to capture everything very natural style if all the cameras were hitting in behind the walls, right? And just be like, you're on camera, but you won't see it so that you're not so self-conscious, right?
Yeah, but that's true. And that's kind of reality TV. But I don't like that because to me, the camera is a part of the conversation. The camera is in a way of, you don't want to pretend it's not there. So, the camera itself has a language of itself. We understand so many things about cinematography based on lighting or based on, composition or based on, many other factors, sound as well. There's a language with cinema that you don't want to lose as well. I don't like the hidden camera kind of style. It can be effective depending on the story you want to tell. But personally, I find it's better to choose the equipment that's going to best suit how to tell that story.
And what kind of stories do you capture them? Is it more family histories or historical documentaries?
Yeah, I don't know. I think That's a question I always ask myself. What kind of what are the common threads that kind of tie my films together? Um, I definitely like to make films about regular people. Um, Often I find there's a pattern in that they're people who have had something happen to them in their lives, and that they've had time to process that, and they're trying to reconcile any issues that they have with something in the past. I find that's, for some reason, that's a common thread that I've seen in the stories that I tell. But I also, I mean, I try and, when I was younger, I was like, I was really interested in political documentaries, but I think the more films I make, the more I realize not, politics is everywhere in everyday life. It's the conversations you have with people. It's the way you arrange your life in many different circumstances. So I'm interested in those kind of politics as well, just how we navigate the world, how my characters navigate the world, and how they understand it, and where they want to go and where they've been, which I guess is a very vague explanation of my films, but that's a common thread I see.
Yeah, because as you were describing, I was thinking of like how Oprah's TV shows they really capture the struggles of humanity, right? Like the very essential,
Sure.
authentic voice. And then CBC tells really emotional stories sometimes about how what happened to this person, and so sometimes there's no ending, but then there's also their challenges and obstacles that they overcome.
I often think that I don't pick the films I make. I feel like those stories find me,
Mm,
if that makes sense. So
mm.
it's when the right story comes, I know I have to make a film about that. Currently, I don't have that, so I'm just waiting for it to happen. The other
Manifest
day
it.
I was, yeah, it comes to me. The other day I was thinking about, I saw somebody who had a pet bird in a park, and they were, walking around with it. And I thought, what an interesting thing, to make a film about, or to tell stories about people who have relationships with birds. I don't know if I'll make a film about that, but that's just, I see something in the world, it sparks an interest, and if I keep pursuing it, I know that that's the right thing to do, if there's a passion for it.
Well, there is a niche market of people who train birds how to talk, and then there is animal speak coaches. So there is a niche in there.
Yeah, a big world to explore, and I often find when I do these projects, I get kind of consumed into them, where I go deeper in terms of learning and understanding, because I feel like that's the only way you can, if somebody's going to honor, trust you with telling their story, you have to do your homework. So it's whenever that thing hits me, then I'll know.
And that was my other question. How do you know what questions to ask them to kind of draw the story of the angle that you want to, bring
So
them?
when I first started doing documentary films, I would do interviews with people, and I would have a prepared sheet on a paper, and I would have all these questions written out, and everything would be ready to go. Um, and I would do a lot of work, and I learned that that was not the right thing to do,
Okay.
because uh, I was using these, like, hiding behind these questions as a way to put all the effort on my subject to do the work, right? Because I'm just throwing you questions, and now you do everything. Well, I don't think that's fair. Um, so when I do it now, I make sure I know exactly what I want to talk about, and I don't go in there with any piece of paper. I Because my goal is to create an environment that's comfortable and natural, and so we actually have a conversation. Um, because that's I find the best way. So I'm present when I'm doing interviews or even just throwing questions. Sometimes I should also say, I'm not throwing anything at the person. I'm just filming them doing something, right? And of course, they're always aware of it and stuff like that. But um, sometimes there's nothing even being spoken. We're filming somebody do something. Um, but yeah, if I'm having a conversation or I have questions for somebody, I just make sure I know exactly what I want to say and I'm present and I'm listening to what they have to say.
This is an aside here because when I was telling one of my group mates about doing something that aligns with my passions and that, just like, why don't you go out there and document family history? And I was like, oh, looks like hours of work, and how's the editing work gonna go? Because editing is a very crucial part too, like how we wanna like portray that person, right, in a good light, or just be like
Oh yeah.
tell their real true stories, and then when the family finds out about what they said in the video, it's like, oh my gosh, like you thought of me like this, and like family rival stars, and so yeah, I thought about it. I guess I'm overthinking things, but documenting family history is also very, very, I think,
I do
very
that a lot.
memorable.
Like
Yeah.
I would say my last three films have all well, no, sorry, two of my last three films have been pretty personal. I'm also working on a podcast about my family as well. So yeah, I can relate to that too because doing films about family, I think it's important too because I always believe that we have to tell the stories that we are experts in. Not to say experts as in like we know all the answers or whatever, but we're in that community or we're of we're the right person to tell that story. Like I wouldn't go into that's why I've done a few films overseas and stuff like that, but I doubt I would go into a film somewhere on the other side of the world, a home on the other side of the world, and film that because as a filmmaker, I don't think I am positioned to tell somebody's story in that way. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is language barrier, right? You
Well,
gotta
language barrier for
understand their
sure.
language, then their
Well, there's
culture,
also a whole cultural barrier too.
and then the family dynamic. Yeah, yeah, but it's also.
But that being said, I've shot films in many countries around the world, and often with people who are not speaking English, and I have no idea what they're saying. But that hasn't been necessarily films that I've made, though I've been like a hired crew or whatever for that. But I know the films that I make, yeah, I want, they should be, I think there has to be a personal side to that, because that's also what drives passion, right? Because it's personal. I also really try and tell stories that make me uncomfortable to tell. Not because, not necessarily because the subject matter is, but because they're challenging to me. There's some knowledge there that I don't know or understand, and in seeking that knowledge is where stories come from as well. So there's a quote by David Bowie about how all great art is like you want to aim to create stories that are just beyond your understanding, just a little bit beyond what you understand, and in reconciling that difference of what you understand and what you don't understand is where interesting stories are made.
I was gonna say Canada is a kind of young country with a lot of multicultural people in there from all backgrounds. So that if you are very interested in political aspects, they're just a never-ending tale to tell, right?
Because I mean, I think there's a great film in everyone's life.
True.
Obviously, I don't have the time to make a film about everyone's life, so you got to pick and choose, and pick the ones that resonate with me.
I see. Okay. Yeah, because I was going to ask you, how many hours do you spend on a project, and then if you're working for somebody, I guess you could charge a certain fee for the project. But if it's kind of like a self-employed, or do you charge it to the person who you're making the film for, and how?
Well, I don't make films for people. If I'm making it, I mean, I guess there's two things there. If I'm a camera operator for a project, or I do sound for a project, or I'm an editor for a project, yeah, I'm getting paid and I'm charging hourly or day rates depending on the project. But when it's my projects, no, I'm putting in a lot of unpaid work.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And often, the projects I make take years for me to make. The interactive doc I did took me 3 years to make. Um, the My recent feature film took 4 years to make. My last film, which is only a short, like a 25-minute short, I think it took me like 5 or 6 years to make. But that's being to say that I'm not working on all of them full time, all the time. I think they move slowly. And that's another thing, how I kind of do these projects is I just move very slowly, and I'm patient with them. But the opposite is when I'm working, when I'm doing jobs for people. They're paying me to do it for a certain amount of time, so I have to do it to the best of my ability within that time frame they give me.
So let's talk about equipment. Like, can you name some equipments that you use or brands that you find are very good? Especially now, like everything is small and portable. I'm like, are earbuds good microphones? But then they seem to pick up sound from every background. I have 4 tripods, but none of them are high enough for my smartphone. Like they're pointing at my navel, and I'm like filming at an angle that I don't like, and yeah. And then now there's
Well,
ring lights.
I have 3 cameras. This is my most recent one that I've been using, which is a Sony camera, which I was mostly shooting with Panasonic cameras, but this is a new one for me. And it's pretty small, you can see. And this is a very powerful camera and takes really beautiful imagery. Cameras, you just pick the tool that's best to tell the story you want to tell. Sometimes that can be a phone. Sometimes it has to be a camera like this, or sometimes it can be a super expensive camera like a $20, $30, $40, $50,000 camera. They can go that high. But I generally shoot with equipment that is honestly not that expensive, and you just use it really well.
Yeah. And sometimes those big video cameras, they're very bulky and heavy, and they have microphones attached. So I'm like, whoa, do I want to lug that around? Like, the tripod is heavy enough.
I don't like using big equipment too. Also, because the bigger it is, the more visible it is, and I want cameras that will, take really nice imagery. That's going to do the job I want. But yeah, you don't want it to intrude too much. You just pick the tools that best suit what you need to do.
I mean, I like the size of the GoPros. They're just cute, like a little toy, but they've got the fisheye wide-angle look, which I guess is not artistic.
Even the new ones still have that kind of fisheye. You can correct that in post.
Oh, okay.
But it still looks like a GoPro. But again, I've shot amazing stuff with GoPros. That's like really beautiful. I did a film 2 years ago. It was on a canoe journey. So I brought my camera, but I actually probably used the GoPro way more than I used.
Because waterproof, in case you...
It's waterproof.
Yeah.
I set them up all around the canoe and stuff like that. So while they were paddling, it captured everything from multiple angles. I thought that worked much better. So again, it was a case of that was the best tool for the job.
And in terms of editing, do you use Final Cut Express, or you like other Adobe Premiere, other softwares?
I use Premiere and After Effects and all that Adobe kind of package, but that can be expensive too because it's a subscription. I know a lot of filmmakers, use Final Cut, and that's kind of nice too because it's a one-time pay. Like I don't know how much it is now. I bought it years ago. I never use it, but it was only a few $100s back then. It's probably more than that now. There's also a great editing software called Resolve, DaVinci Resolve. It's free. It's amazing. It's actually a professional color grading software too. Like it's one of the best softwares for that, but you can also edit with it. It has all, you can use it for free. It's great, but you can also pay an extra fee to get, unlock some more things with it, and that's like $400. So it's not much. It's not that expensive. And there's all these free ones as well you can use.
Yeah. Okay, nice. Do you have any recommendations of people you know who also do a lot of filming or they're in front of the camera a lot? Like if you know any connections or who I can talk to, you can email to me later as well.
I can think. Yeah, let me think about it.
Okay, sure.
I guess I know people who are in front of the camera far more. I mean, I'm never in front of the camera. I'm always behind it. I don't think I've ever been in any of my films.
It's more fun to be in front of the camera. I'm telling you.
In front of the camera?
Yeah, can be a little animated. And then my other, I guess, could be the last question is, do you recommend books on this subject, like how to be confident in front of the camera, filming, and all those?
I mean, I definitely haven't read any books about how to be comfortable on camera. I've definitely read a lot of books about filmmaking.
Okay. Well, any of those title recommendations are good too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the classic one that a lot of people have referenced is called Rebel Without a Crew.
Oh, okay.
Robert Rodriguez wrote it. He's a Mexican filmmaker, a Mexican-American filmmaker. And he talks about his kind of evolution, his growth from as a child to making films to doing it professionally. It's an older book. It's probably about 20 years old now. It's called Making Movies by Sidney Lumet. That's a really great book too. I like reading books that like people who make films write because it's kind of their process and stuff like that too. So I try and read the books by people who I make movies that I like.
That's about it. All my questions. All right. Thank you so much.